You've probably been thinking, where has Angry Guy been? Bro just up and left. And I'm here to tell you that you're entirely wrong. Honestly, I've been busy. Aside from dealing with the natural issues of being a YouTuber and dealing with issues related to the platform, there's been a lot of other stuff going on. A lot of it has been related to not only exhaustion, but also demoralization. I've been on YouTube for over 10 years. I've been making content for over 10 years. And I've gone from an angry guy who would say anything to a heavily sanitized guy that walks on eggshells and tries his best not to upset the rulers of the platform or the people who can cry to the rulers. It's walking a tightrope. I went from verbalizing my thoughts to having to repeat the same things over and over again. The things I'm allowed to say, son, versus not being able to say the things that I'm actually thinking and feeling but can no longer convey. And eventually, it begins to wear away at you. You begin asking yourself, what am I even doing anymore? Why am I even doing this? Also, there's the time it takes to make each video, the effort that goes into it. Let me make this clear. Being a YouTuber for many of us is one of the luckiest jobs in the world, but it's not free. It takes a lot out of many of us, and sometimes reading comments from really mean people or people with warped ideas can get to me. One of the most important things I've actually done recently was installing browser plugins like Unhook on the Brave browser and using Morphe YouTube on my Android phone to disable things like comments, recommendations, the home feed, the subscription feed, end screen panels, shorts, and so many other things. This allows me to watch YouTube without distractions. And using PocketTube, a subscription manager extension, to tightly package together the few main channels that I watch into categories that are easily accessible right from the YouTube side menu. This allows me to avoid seeing tons of video suggestions every day and instead only track videos from a few creators that I actually care about. I've been able to use PocketTube on both my desktop browser, Brave, and my Pixel 10a to manage my subscriptions, which has allowed me to avoid constant distractions like doom scrolling. I also have YouTube Premium, so I don't have to watch ads. I'm also off all other social media. I shut them down earlier this year, so I don't have to see any of the nonsense on them. And I avoid almost all news, beyond updates from the few channels that I follow, which mainly center around tech, video games, and emulation. Half the time, I don't know what's happening in the world. And honestly, I don't really care. I'm protecting my mind and my peace. So, where have I been? To be honest, I've been very busy. 2026 has been a really eventful year for me. I cleared off all of my student loans earlier this year, allowing me to have no student loan debt for the first time in 20 years. I'm aggressively working on getting rid of all personal debt, something that has been more challenging, NTI, but the goal is still to get rid of all of it by the end of this year, God willing. But the main thing for me has been freedom, pursuing freedom and not having to have any single point of failure take me down. Honestly, I've been busy learning and building infrastructure. A better way of putting it is that I've been learning and I've been building. I started out this year realizing that this you'll own nothing and be happy thing was real. And I wasn't feeling that vibe. So I took action, realizing that we were headed for a RAM and components crisis. I bought all the parts for a high end AMD build late last year and then assembled it earlier this year. I used Micro Center to assemble it. Yeah, I know I cheated, sue me. The build was only a part of the journey because I knew that I was done with Windows and its nonsense. What I wanted was freedom. And as such, I knew Linux was the answer. But the thing is that I knew nothing about Linux other than experimenting with Ubuntu like 20 years ago and not liking it. But there were other distros now. I did my research and after distro hopping settled on Fedora Linux. Moving to Linux was painful. Having to learn the terminal was painful. Finding software that would let me make videos on Linux was painful. Heck, I even lost the ability to make videos for 1 month because I moved to Linux and none of the video editing software would work correctly. But eventually, I found something that worked, Kdenlive, and found a repository version of it that was compatible with my distro, got it working, learned how to use it, and began making videos again. I put Linux on my desktop and on my Strix laptop, which is my main production machine. From there, I went on a journey of discovery. I went from hating the terminal and fearing it to wanting to spend most of my day in it when working on various things. I picked up an AYN Odin 2 Portal Max in January, although I didn't set it up until May because I knew it would be a massive learning curve. I was right, but once I did, it opened up the world of emulation to me and changed me forever. Now I emulate more games than I buy. I went from spending thousands on games per year to less than $100 a month on games and purchasing almost no new games most months or only very cheap titles for a few dollars. And emulation is heavily responsible for that. Being able to own massive libraries of titles from the PS2, PS3, and even PS4 era that I can emulate, most of them emulating well on my Odin 2 portal, and also accessing games from the SNES and Sega Genesis eras, discovering recompilation and decompilation games only recently, like Pokemon Red, Blue, or Twilight Princess, that make these games look and play amazingly well after decades, changing the art style even and breathing new life into games that are sometimes 30 or more years old, including many that can be branded as abandonware, which are games that publishers no longer support or release. In some cases, abandonware can't ever be released again because the companies that produced it no longer exist. And now the ownership rights sit in limbo. Decompilations, recompilations, and community ports help fix this. My current library of retro titles sits at somewhere around 9,000 plus titles and will likely exceed 10,000 soon. This is a combination of many titles from over the last 40 years, all tucked away on my media home server. And yeah, that brings me to another very important detail. I built a home server, and that's what my focus has been on for roughly the last 3 weeks. Many of you know that I purchased a little NAS earlier this year, a simple Ugreen 2,300 dirhams that I intended to use as a means of having access to the equivalent of cloud storage locally. However, I never realized that by installing a program called Docker, I could turn it into a full-fledged media server. Long story short, with lots of trial and error over the last 3 weeks, I've built a massive media server that houses almost 10,000 games, accessible via a ROM manager that lets me download them from anywhere and manage them easily. Hundreds of episodes of anime, TV series, and movies that are presented via a Crunchyroll slash Netflix like interface that I can customize to my heart's content and stream from anywhere in the world remotely. A music server that I built myself that allows me to stream my music through various music streaming server apps, allowing me to control my music that I own. I bought a bunch of music earlier this year and now no longer use streaming music services. And I did that for many other things. I built what is known as a home lab. A home lab is a broader term for a home based IT environment used for learning, experimentation, and hosting various services, whereas a media server is a specific application or function that can run within a home lab. While a media server, such as Plex, Jellyfin, or Kodi, focuses exclusively on storing and streaming digital media, a home lab encompasses this along with other infrastructure like networking equipment, virtual machines, cloud storage, for example, Nextcloud, and home automation tools, for example, Home Assistant. I basically went wild. I dreamed of owning all of my content, owning my music, owning my games, and being able to access them from anywhere. And for the most part, I achieved it. I also learned how to build out my own AI platform with chatbots, image generation, and it's still growing. It's my own locally hosted version of ChatGPT using Olama, Open Web UI, and Comfy UI, and Automatic 1111. That's the AI image generation software. I dreamed of downloading the internet. For example, having all of Wikipedia offline. And I achieved that by installing a program known as KioWix that allows you to download entire sites like databases and access them offline. I also use other programs to download portions of websites that are then immediately backed up to my NAS and accessible remotely from anywhere in the world. I can stream and access all of the content from my NAS and even the interface of my NAS from pretty much anywhere thanks to how I've set it up. The only bad part is I've built so much that I already need to upgrade to something much more powerful, which is why I'll likely build my own custom NAS in the next few months using parts I bought earlier this year for a backup PC build that I will now use to build a powerful NAS instead. That will allow me to do things like literally stream PS4 games or AAA games from anywhere in the world, like I have my own GeForce Now server. I've been chasing freedom. Freedom from the powers that be, freedom from the own nothing reality that tech companies and others are trying to push upon us, freedom from information being taken away from us at any moment, or everything that we own being controlled by our digital overlords. I learned that you have to own the infrastructure for everything. I own my NAS, I own my files, and as such, I own the infrastructure and software, meaning they can't be taken away from me. And most of all, I own my knowledge, and that knowledge means I can rebuild when I need to. I learned that knowledge, skills, and infrastructure compound. This means that knowledge and skills you gain build upon each other and can then be applied to different things. For example, Google is going to make side loading on Android phones very difficult starting this year. In response, I bought a Pixel 10a, installed Graphene OS on it, which is basically a community built, privacy focused version of Android, freeing me from Google's control over my OS and allowing me to have full control of my device, with side loading now safe and protected. Learning Linux helped me learn how to use Graphene OS. It helped me develop the skills needed to build out my home lab and use Compose, which are basically scripts run in Docker to create containers that basically house the apps like Jellyfin and Navidrome that let me host, watch, and manage media from my NAS. I realized that the smartest move going forward also is for me to build out my own platforms for distribution of my videos and content, where I can reach my subscribers directly. When they sign up, I have access to their emails. I can email them, contact them when new videos are out. I own the website, I own the domain, I own the infrastructure, and I can have it automatically backed up daily to my NAS, meaning if the server ever goes offline, I can easily restore it or move it to another server dirt cheap. Hosting a server right now that would allow for this would basically cost less than $100 a year. $100 to own my infrastructure, to own my audience, and to not be trapped or controlled on another man's land. To make videos only on one platform that are controlled by the platform is to literally be living on another man's land, where you are constantly under their control and punished even if you don't do anything wrong and follow all of their policies. They're always moving the goalposts, and you have very few rights, if any at all. This is why you have to own the infrastructure. This has become my philosophy. I own my Pixel 10a and now own the software on it, just well, Graphene OS. And as a result, Google can't take features away. They can't keep changing policies. And I enjoy extraordinary privacy, being able to control what information is accessed. Apps and services are all sandboxed from each other, meaning none of them can control my own or access my information. I own my massive library of ROMs that I emulate. They can't be taken away from me, and I can access them at any time from anywhere. Of course, the experience isn't always seamless. I often have to tweak settings and research things when things don't work. But what I've gained is the ability to play amazing games from the past. And with resolution upscaling, these games look on par with games released in 2026 a lot of the time, or better. And I'm not making that up. I've heavily switched to open source software as well, which is almost always free and often offers a much better experience than paid software that comes riddled with ads and bloatware. This freedom has allowed me to stop spending money on software almost entirely, with only selective small purchases here and there. It's freed me from most subscriptions, including things like OneDrive or Google Drive for cloud storage. I now use my NAS, and things are automatically backed up there. I now have alternatives and backups for so many things so I can survive and thrive, even if some service breaks. My goal for the future is now to build out my own platform for you guys, where I will distribute my content and can speak my mind and share my ideas freely. I'll be putting effort into getting it online as soon as possible in the coming weeks and hopefully much sooner. I often find myself working 12 to 16-hour days, setting up different platforms on my NAS and building things out and doing lots of troubleshooting, but that knowledge has compounded. Infrastructure also compounds because having Linux, which I control, compounded with my NAS, which I control, and using software to do remote access known as Tailscale, compounds with allowing me to create and stream my media from my NAS using apps like Jellyfin and Navidrome. And all of my devices, my Odin 2 portal, iPhone, Pixel 10a, laptops, and desktop, are all interconnected to this massive ecosystem. I'm basically building myself an entire world offline. Eventually, the goal is to have enough of the internet downloaded selectively, such as databases. Wikipedia was a big one, that I can access valuable information regardless of being connected to the internet. You're able to download so much valuable information, it's pretty insane. There's a community on Reddit called Data Hoarders, and they focus specifically on doing this, hoarding various forms of data, including entire portions of the internet. I've also been working on getting a second citizenship for the last few years now, and it remains a work in progress so that I can live and travel more freely almost anywhere and don't have to depend on just one country for my survival and ability to thrive. That's in many ways just a small peek into what I've been doing. I've been chasing freedom. I haven't given up on YouTube, and I'll continue putting out videos. I've just been busy building, working on myself, working on my health, working on building something for myself. I've been self maxing, which is the aggressive optimization of personal time and convenience to maximize individual efficiency and autonomy. The behavioral impact, however, is that this mindset contributes to a significant reduction in daily verbal communication. And as you've seen, it's caused me to interact a lot less in general. It prioritizes extracting the maximum value from one's availability by minimizing time spent on mundane tasks or social exchanges. I've actually cut off all friends and virtually all family. I haven't spoken with almost any friends or family in years. In fact, the number is almost zero. Years of zero communication with any friends or family as I focus entirely on myself. And it sounds selfish, but honestly, it's been an incredible decision. I haven't been on a date in almost 7 years either, and seriously, one of the best decisions I ever made. I honestly don't ever want to return to dating. It feels so damn icky, a waste of time, and a miserable experience. A lot of it comes down to me simply enjoying my peace as well. And that's it. I've been busy, but I'm still here. I haven't abandoned YouTube. I haven't abandoned you, my loyal subscribers, and I'll be back with new content soon. And hopefully, my own platform that I own, where I can share my videos and email you whenever I drop new content instead of having to rely on another man's infrastructure to communicate. And most of all, look, I'll be able to share my mostly unfiltered ideas and thoughts that I've had to hold back for years because I have to walk on eggshells when doing business on another man's land. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for sticking with me for the entirety of this video and in general, sticking with me. I know it's been a bumpy ride. If you want to help support me in my journey and the content that I make, use the link in the description to buy me a Red Bull. And don't forget that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.